My name is Rhea Solange Mercer, 33 years old. The message blinked onto my screen at 9:47 p.m., just as I'd set the takeout on the coffee table and exhaled, like the day might finally let me have a bite of it. Dad, you're not one of us anymore. No greeting, no punctuation. 6 words that felt like a stamp pressed into wax. I waited for the follow-up that didn't come. A reason, a rage, even one of his clumsy jokes that always landed a beat late. Nothing. He went offline the second it marked read. I didn't cry. I didn't ache. Something quieter happened, like the light switch in my chest slid down with a soft, definitive click. I stood and walked the length of our hallway, past the kids' closed doors, the little tide of their breathing against the night, past the framed school photo with the crooked haircut we didn't fix because he liked it. No destination. I just couldn't sit while the words found the shape they wanted to take in me. 2 days before, Jessica had called from her apartment in Manhattan. Midterm came fast, she'd said breezily. Any chance you can cover tuition this round? The family funds tapped. I hadn't said no. I'd said the truth. It's tight right now. Payroll had doubled with the new hires. A shipment delay sat like a cinder block on cash flow. 3 contractors needed paying before Friday. I didn't explain. I didn't list. I just said tight. She didn't ask a single question. Okay, she said, and hung up, like the answer was a door I hadn't opened fast enough. On Thursday, my father told me I wasn't one of them. On Friday morning, a paper slid through the mail slot like a pizza menu. Don't show your face here again. Shorter than the text, colder. The ink still tacky when I unfolded it, like whoever printed it couldn't wait for the hate to dry. I poured coffee I didn't taste, opened my laptop, and did what they didn't expect the quiet one to do. I turned off the machine. First, Escrow. The long-term development deal where my signature did the adulting. They'd been calling it ours. It was mine holding their mistakes together. I signed off my share, detached my name from the filings, forwarded the release to the escrow attorney with a subject line so clean it could cut glass. Second, the trust. Dad loved to brag that our family was bound by structure, the way some men brag about fences and don't notice the locks. I emailed the trust officer, attached my withdrawal, and requested immediate removal from all collective assets, signatory rights, and decision-making. At 3:02 p.m., he wrote back, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I sent the notarized PDF and didn't annotate the word sure. Third, separation. From every joint entity, their names still clung to like ivy. The Tahoe house they posted from every spring. The downtown office they used rent-free because family. The shell company I'd quietly let them rinse emergencies through. I filed with the same precision I used to build things for them. By 5:08 a.m., the next day my phone chimed in the dark. "Jessica, what did you do?" I stared at the question and laughed once, not because it was funny, but because breathing felt like something I could do without permission again. At 8:17 a.m., an email from Mom's attorney landed like a paper airplane that knew where my window was. "We need to talk today." So I went. No heads up, no flowers for the conference table. I walked into his office and watched him shuffle papers too fast for a man on his first cup of coffee. "Emotions are high," he said, hands refusing to sit still. "Maybe we put a hold on the separation. Temporary, to stabilize the trust." "Nothing about this is emotional," I said. "It's arithmetic." He blinked. People do that when they realize the one they miscast as soft speaks math. "Rhea," he tried again. "Perhaps we can—" "I ended my involvement when they made it clear I'm a resource, not a person," I said. "This isn't a tantrum. It's a ledger closing." I didn't tell him the part I had just let settle into me like a truth you only feel once. Nearly everything they depended on moved through me. Dad's landscaping supply company? It lived under the credit umbrella of my firm. After his IRS fiasco a decade ago, he couldn't get a loan that wasn't predatory. My personal line secured the corporate card he liked to flash at lunches. Jessica's MBA at Columbia? That wasn't the family fund. It was an extension tied to my business collateral. The landlord on that glossy apartment on E67th didn't say yes to her. He said yes to the cosign that auto-wired on the 25th. Mom's nonprofit? Not the trust. Monthly auto deposits from my account, disguised as family holdings, because the board liked that phrase, and Mom liked how it sounded when she said it into speeches. The first time I said it was hard, they exiled me with 6 words. "Please," the attorney said as I stood, "don't make any more decisions until we talk again." I didn't promise a thing. Decisions had already been made. What they didn't know yet was what those decisions would cost. By Monday, the cracks showed like frost lines in glass. Jessica blew up my phone before 8 a.m. Calls, voice notes, the text that rose above the noise. Jessica, what did you do? My account's frozen. I can't transfer rent. Fix it. There was nothing to fix anymore. The rule that sent her landlord money every month lived in a folder I had deleted while the ink dried on "Don't show your face here again." At 11:12, Greenspine's bank, Wells Fargo commercial, called to confirm the new status of the company card. "Do you want to notify the other cardholders?" the woman asked. "No," I said. "They'll find out." Dad had the founder title, sure. But the business loan, my signature. The vendor accounts, my network. The corporate credit, my umbrella. When he booted me out, he forgot the paperwork still said otherwise. By lunch, Jessica tried a different temperature. "Jessica, okay, just tell me what I need to do. I need access back, please." I remembered every time I'd hesitated over a transfer and been told I didn't care about her future. Every time I'd asked for a plan and been handed a feeling. I put the phone face down. At 3:07, Mom's attorney called again, voice smoothed to the grain. "Could you sign a temporary freeze reversal, just to buy time to stabilize?" "No," I said. "What would it take to negotiate?" "You're too late." At 4:30, Dad sent a single line. "Dad, fix this now." No greeting, no explanation. Just the command he mistook for relationship. The reversal would have been funny if it hadn't felt like déjà vu, begging without knowing how. He used to call me the quiet one because I didn't argue. I executed. He misread restraint for loyalty. They always do. The ones who believe silence belongs to them. Night fell. The family group chat, the one that once hummed with curated dinners and sunshot porches, sat dead. No end-of-day photo from Mom's table staged with cloth napkins and store-bought rosemary. The quiet used to ache. It used to make me feel like I was on the outside of a thing I kept paying to be part of. This time, the silence felt earned. By Tuesday, it wasn't just frozen accounts. It was collapse. Vendors called Marcus, my friend who handles contract fulfillment, asking why Dad's orders were getting flagged. "Payment channels are down," he said. "They're not down," I told him. "They're gone." At 3:19 a.m. while I slept, someone tried to reset the old shared cloud admin password using one of my backup emails. Only 3 people ever had it. Me, Dad, the trust officer. I checked the IP log. Jessica's address. They were trying to dig their way back in. What they didn't know, I'd already migrated everything to clean servers with segmented permissions. I hadn't deleted the old system because there was one thing left in there. A folder named Frostline. Inside, copies of contracts, financial records, internal memos signed in my name without my knowledge. The kinds of things that don't look good to licensing boards, or auditors, or conscience. At 3:26, the autolock tripped. At 3:31, Jessica called, voice sharp. "What is Frostline?" I hung up. At noon, the trust officer texted, "We should talk, in person." I said yes. He looked exhausted across the polished wood. 3 emergency meetings, he said. He said, "Your father is on the verge of liquidating to cover payroll. 2 of your mother's board members resigned. Jessica tried for a private loan. Denied." He paused, then, "She told the board you controlled the nonprofit's books, that you hid things." I met his eyes. I wasn't hiding anything. I was done cleaning up. He studied me for a beat like I was a language he hadn't had to learn until now, then slid a small black flash drive across the desk. "This is from your grandfather's archive, he said. "He left it with the trust years ago, for the one who walks away first. I think that's you." I didn't speak. I took it like it might bite and left. At home, I plugged it into my offline machine. One folder. Scanned letters. Grandfather to Dad, to Mom, to me. He'd seen the slope decades ago. Control, entitlement, the slow siphon. The last letter was labeled with my full name in his exacting script. "If you're reading this, you've already made the hard choice. Don't let them back in. Not again. Not even once." I sat very still until the words settled into the place the light switch used to be. By nightfall, I made a final move. The Carmel vacation house, the one my parents used every spring, the one still partially in my name, went into a private holding company I controlled. New deed filed. Smart locks changed. At 8:07 p.m., Mom called for the first time all week. I let it ring. Monday arrived like it always does. coffee, lunchboxes, the clatter of cereal bowls. Only this time, there was a new quiet in the house, the kind you get after a storm when trees look taller because they're still standing. Noah kissed the tops of the kids' heads and left for a sight walk, and I sat with my laptop open to a calendar full of real deadlines instead of inherited emergencies. By 7:53 a.m., the first alert hit. Greenspine's Bank, auto wire rule to E. 67th Street. Cancelled. At 8:01, the second. Jessica, what did you do? My account is frozen. I can't transfer rent. Fix it. I set the phone down beside the coffee mug and watched the steam leave, like a small, faithful ghost doing its job. At 11:12, Wells Fargo commercial, Greenspine's division, called back to confirm permanent status for all secondary cardholders. The woman's voice carried the exact politeness of a person who has explained fire exits for years. Would you like us to notify the other users? She asked. No, I said. They'll figure it out. At 12:36, Mom called for the first time. Not how are you, not we were wrong. Just a sentence designed to sound like love while doing the opposite. You're destroying everything we built, she said. The word we hit like a fork scraping porcelain. You mean what I built, I said, not unkindly. You just didn't know it. She hung up without the performative sigh. Something about the clean sound of it made me want to vacuum. At 1:22, Mom's attorney again, this time with urgency showing at the edges. Consider a temporary freeze reversal, Ms. Mercer, just to stabilize the trust while we... No. Then what would it take to... You're too late, I said, because it was the truth, and I was done borrowing gentleness to make other people comfortable with it. At 2:05, I emailed the accountant. Proceed with property reallocation. Cash out my share per the existing split. Implement the sequence we discussed. Translation. They could keep Tahoe, but they would lose the Denver flat. Keep the warehouse, but not the leasing rights. The friends and family vendor terms would revert to cash on delivery at the exact moment my father thought he could bluff his way through payroll. By 3:41, Marcus called from the fulfillment desk. Your dad sounds like a man being told the ocean is closed, he said softly. My inbox is full of new orders Greenspines can't fund. They're not down, I told him. They're gone. At 4:30, the text that used to move me like a puppet string. Dad, fix this now. I let the phone rest in my palm. Somewhere in another house, at another table, he was staring at a different screen, learning what happens when you tell the engine it can leave and you expect the car to keep going. Night fell. The family group chat stayed still, a museum brochure for a place I didn't visit anymore. I tucked the kids in and tiptoed past their door with the warm ache that lives where fear used to. At 3:19 a.m., while I slept, an attempt pinged our old shared cloud, admin reset, backup email I hadn't used in years. Only 3 people ever knew it. Me, my father, the trust officer. The IP log tagged Jessica's apartment. They were trying to dig their way back through a door I had boarded from both sides. What they hadn't anticipated was my habit of leaving myself one last clean exit. The new system was already live on segmented servers. The old one was a shell I hadn't deleted because there was still one thing inside it I had kept for the day I would need it to protect me. Frostline. At 3:26, the auto lock tripped. At 3:31, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. Jessica, what is Frostline? I didn't open it. I just saw the name. Call me now. I turned the phone face down. The room got quiet again. Noah reached for my hand under the covers and found it without looking. I slept like I had handed something heavy to the floor. Morning brought scrambled eggs and a warm rectangle of sunlight on the kitchen tile. It brought the small, good noise of a life that had all 4 corners. It brought no more calls until noon, when the trust officer texted, "We should talk, in person." His office smelled like paper and winter coats. He looked like he'd spent the night refereeing a family of toddlers in suits. They've called 3 emergency meetings, he said, folding his glasses and unfolding them again. Your father is considering liquidating part of Greenspine to make payroll. 2 of your mother's board members resigned after the funds froze. Jessica applied for a private loan. Denied. He hesitated. She tried to blame you, said you controlled the nonprofit books, that you hid things. I didn't hide anything, I said. I stopped cleaning. He nodded like that was a kind of math he understood. Then he reached into his drawer and slid a small black flash drive across the desk. This is from your grandfather's archive, he said. He left it with us years ago, labeled, "For the one who walks away first." I think that's you. I kept my face still because it felt like the right ceremony for receiving the last clean piece of a man who had taught me to keep tools in the trunk. At home, I plugged it into an offline machine. One folder. Scanned letters in his exacting printer-straight script. To my father, warnings against confusing leadership with control. To my mother, a paragraph about the subtle cost of love measured in other people's credit. To me, a single page that felt like it had waited 6 years in a drawer for my hands. If you're reading this, you've already made the hard choice. Don't let them back in. Not again. Not even once. Granddad. I sat there until the words settled. Then I did the final thing I'd been saving for last, because it deserved to be last. The Carmel house. The one with the bougainvillea my mother always posed under in April. The one my father called ours, with the same mouth that told me I wasn't one of them. It was still partially in my name because when you are the person who makes things happen, paperwork follows you like a shadow. I transferred it to a private holding company. Deed recorded, smart locks changed. At 6:23 p.m., the gate camera caught a car idling at the bottom of the drive. At 6:24, someone punched in an expired code, the last 4 digits of my father's birthday, twice. The keypad stayed red. At 7:12, the first attempt landed in my inbox. A handwritten claim from their lawyer leveraging a sticky note from 5 years ago. The Thanksgiving when I scribbled, "Use it anytime," on a neon square and stuck it to a bottle of Pinot. They were trying to say whenever we want meant ownership. Desperate, my attorney said when I forwarded it. We'll file the counter tonight. At 7:40, a voicemail from my father, a relic of a man who thought gravity would always bend toward him. "Daughter," he started, like an actor in the wrong play, and then nothing for 4 seconds except the small echo of a person walking across his own kitchen, learning how big a room gets when other people stop filling it. "We didn't mean for it to go like this," he tried. "We were angry. We thought you were turning your back on us. This isn't what we wanted." The message ended before sincerity could find him. I saved it, not because I needed it, because sometimes you label jars to remind yourself what you don't need to open again. On Wednesday, the diplomacy began. My mother appeared at our door at 10:30 a.m., bareheaded in the late sun, holding a bakery box from the overpriced place she hadn't liked until I bought her a gift card there 2 birthdays ago. She didn't knock. She stared at the door like she expected it to understand what she wanted. I watched from behind the curtain. She set the box down like it might break if she looked away too fast and walked back to her car. Inside, 2 blueberry muffins. Under the lid, "Let's talk. We miss you." I didn't bring them inside. I lifted the lid, folded the note in half, and carried the whole thing to the outside bin, because some things learn faster in the cold. By 1:00, Jessica tried long-form revisionism, a 7-paragraph email blooming with childhood memories, and "we all said things," and "you know we love you." Every sentence performed the soft rewrite of people who will do anything to avoid the spine of an apology. At 2:50, my phone pinged. Carmel Properties, attempted unlock, expired code. Last 4 digits, still his birthday. At 3:06, Mom's attorney sent a formal demand to cease unilateral actions regarding the Carmel property, attaching a scan of the sticky note like it was scripture instead of an old joke covered in gravy. My attorney filed the counter like a baton handoff. By 4:10, 2 different vendors forwarded me copy-pasted emails from my father, confused and furious that preferred terms were suddenly gone. I sent back one line to both. "Please direct future communications to the new account holder. I am no longer affiliated with Greenspine." The world creaked into a new shape and held. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table with restructuring paperwork fanned out like a calm storm. Noah spooned yogurt into Ava's mouth while Mason explained a 2nd-grade riddle like it was a legal brief. After a while, Noah looked up. "Are you sure?" he asked softly. "About the last set of lockouts?" "I am," I said. "This isn't revenge." He waited. "It's recognition," I said. "I'm not destroying anything. I'm revealing it." He nodded, the way you nod when you're watching a forest regrow. At 8:32 p.m., my attorney called with a small laugh in his voice. "They just filed on Carmel using your sticky note. We already countered. By morning, the judge will boot it off the docket." "So they're out of ideas," I said. "Or running out of places to try them," he said. When the house got quiet, I stepped onto the porch. The night smelled like the kind of cool that once meant a drive to the coast and a bag of oranges for the week. My phone buzzed once. The gate camera, another expired code, tried and denied, and then it didn't. Somewhere across town, in a house with all the lights on, my family was deciding whether to call that silence defeat. For me, it was mercy. The first knock came on a Sunday evening, the kind that pretends it's polite. I didn't have to check the camera. When I opened the door, my father stood there holding a large plastic storage tub against his chest like an offering. His posture was stiff, proud, rehearsed. "Your mother wanted you to have these," he said. I didn't speak. He waited for permission that wasn't coming, then set the tub on the porch. "We don't expect anything," he added quickly. "Just thought maybe you'd want to see them again." Then he turned and walked down the steps without looking back. Inside were photo albums, thick, sticky-paged relics, smelling faintly of dust and sunscreen. Yellowstone, pool days, Mom in oversized sunglasses, laughing beside a grill. She'd never learned to light. Jessica, at 3 years old, in my arms, mid-splash. I sat cross-legged on the floor and flipped through the pages slowly, my reflection bending in the plastic sleeves. These weren't memories anymore. They were exhibits in a museum built from people who'd stopped believing their own lines. By the last page, the ache wasn't nostalgia, it was recognition. I could see it in every captured smile, the hierarchy, the choreography, the way I'd been trained to stay behind the camera and make it all possible. I closed the album and set it aside. The house was quiet except for the refrigerator's hum. Noah found me sitting there and crouched beside me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, "just cataloging the past." He touched the edge of the tub with one finger. "What are you going to do with them?" "Keep them," I said. "Proof is different from forgiveness." The following week, the courts finished cutting the last threads. Trust dissolved. Property separated. No appeals, no surprises, just signatures. My father had to sell part of Greenspine's to cover payroll. The man who once called himself founder now co-signed invoices with a buyer half his age. Mom's nonprofit shuttered its downtown office and announced a transition to remote operations. Jessica downsized to a studio she could afford without me. The machine still existed, it just didn't run. That Friday, Lisa, my quiet cousin, showed up with 2 coffees and the look of someone carrying gossip that weighed too much. "They're different now," she said carefully. "Your mom won't stop planning your daughter's birthday party like she's still invited. Your dad barely speaks. Jessica keeps saying it's all a misunderstanding." I laughed softly. "That's what people call the truth when it finally costs them something." Lisa hesitated. "They miss you, Rhea. I think, in their way, they're trying." "I know," I said. "But trying and changing aren't the same thing." She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "You're not going to let them back in." "I can't," I said. "They taught me what happens when I do." After Lisa left, the small performances began. A card slid through the mail slot. "Thinking of you all. Love, Mom." A package on the doorstep. A wooden puzzle labeled, "For Mason, no return address." A text from Jessica. "Let's start fresh. For the kids." Every gesture measured to seem kind, not manipulative. Everyone a test. Noah called it smiling warfare. He wasn't wrong. At first, I ignored them. Then I created rules. If they dropped something off, I would acknowledge receipt. Nothing more. If they emailed, I would respond only with facts. No emotions, no explanations, no apologies. When distant relatives called to say, "They're trying, don't punish them forever," I said, "Boundaries aren't punishment. They're fences built after arson." That usually ended the call. In September, the judge's confirmation letter arrived. Carmel House, officially mine. Every asset we once shared, separated, sealed. That night, we celebrated the only way that felt right. Pancakes for dinner, syrup in paper cups, laughter spilling through the kitchen like we were finally breathing in sync. After the kids were asleep, Noah poured wine into mugs. "Feels done, doesn't it?" "Almost," I said. "But endings always pretend to be quieter than they are." He smiled. "You think they'll try again?" "They will," I said. "People always knock when they realize the locks aren't theirs anymore." 2 weeks later, they did. Mom came by with a bag of toys, the kind that make too much noise on purpose. "Just thought the kids might like these," she said, standing on the porch. "Thank you," I replied, stepping outside and closing the door behind me. "How are they?" she asked. "They're fine. I could watch them sometime," she said quickly. "Give you and Noah a night out." "We're good," I said, gentle but firm. She smiled too hard, like a mask slipping. Of course, I understand. She didn't. When she left, Noah leaned in the doorway and said, "She still thinks she can charm her way back in." "She can't," I said. "Charm is just control dressed in perfume." Autumn passed. Leaves turned copper and started falling like endings that didn't need permission. The calls dwindled, the gifts became rarer. Eventually, only the mail remained. Handwritten cards, each one a new flavor of apology. "I know we made mistakes. Family should forgive. Your father hasn't been sleeping." I saved them all in a shoebox labeled Archive next to the flash drive from Granddad. Proof and memory, side by side. One evening, Mason found me filing the latest envelope. "Grandma wrote again?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Are you going to write back?" I looked at him, at his open, curious face, the kind that hadn't learned yet that love can come with contracts. "No," I said softly. "Some stories don't need sequels." He thought about it. "Then why keep them?" So I don't forget what the first book was about. The first snow came early that year. I watched flakes settle on the porch railing, melting before they could become anything else. It struck me how much survival looks like that. Brief, beautiful, gone before anyone notices. Inside, Noah was teaching Ava to fold paper boats. Their laughter lifted through the hall. My phone buzzed. Another message. "Jessica. Can we start over? I promise it'll be different this time." I typed, "It already is," then muted the thread. Because it was true. Different didn't mean better. It meant mine. That night, I walked through the house one last time before bed. The living room full of color pencil drawings, the hallway echoing with the day's small arguments about bedtime. I stopped by the tub of photo albums, still sitting unopened in the corner. I should have felt something. Grief, anger, nostalgia. But what I felt was simpler. Distance. The kind that isn't cold, just clear. I knelt, opened the first album, and tucked a new photo inside. Our family, this one real, this one earned, me, Noah, the kids, flour on our hands, from making pancakes, the kind of mess that means belonging. Then I closed it, because sometimes closure isn't about shutting a door, it's about deciding which ones will never open again. Winter settled over our town like a hush. For the first time in years, I could hear the house breathe. No deadlines I didn't choose, no phones vibrating with panic that wasn't mine. Just stillness, and the small, good sounds of a family that had stopped apologizing for peace. I thought that meant it was over. I was wrong. The first gift came in January, wrapped in silver paper with no return address. Inside, a children's book, the same one my mother used to read aloud when I was 6, The Giving Tree. On the first page, in her tidy, looping handwriting, she'd written, "It's never too late to grow back together." Noah watched me read it and said, "That's not an apology, that's bait." I put the book on the shelf with the other gifts I didn't ask for, the ones that weren't really gifts, more like reminders that they still knew our address. By February, Jessica had started her own campaign, photos of minimalists living on social media, captions like, "Learning to live simpler, grateful for what matters." It looked like repentance, but I knew it wasn't. Repentance isn't curated, it's quiet. When she finally texted again, it was about the kids. "Let me know if I can visit for Mason's birthday. I'll keep it small." I typed back, "The party's family only." Then I hit send and smiled at the precision of it. The doorbell rang more often that spring. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly dropping by to see how you're doing. Old family friends carrying store-bought pies, pretending they'd just been in the neighborhood. Each time, I opened the door halfway, the way people do when they've learned what boundaries look like from the inside. "Come by any time," one of them said once, stepping back into the wind. I nodded. "Use the visitor's entrance." He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean exactly that," I said, and closed the door. Because that was the new rule now. They could show up, but they couldn't stay. They could look, but they couldn't touch. Not my kids, not my time, not my peace. The real pressure came from strangers, distant relatives who thought forgiveness was a spectator sport. Phone calls, emails, messages that began with, "You only get one family," and ended with, "Be the bigger person." I didn't explain that I already was. I'd spent my entire life being the bigger person, financially, emotionally, structurally, while they stood on my shoulders to reach the fruit. They only noticed I was gone when the tree stopped bending. The court finalization paperwork arrived in March. Trust dissolution, complete. Property divisions, finalized. Greenspine's partial sale, confirmed. Every dotted line I'd signed had finally turned into a boundary someone else couldn't cross. Dad was officially out of business ownership. Mom's nonprofit had quietly dissolved into a shell organization that existed mostly on hope and leftover stationery. Jessica's new life, the minimalist studio, the new job, was being framed as reinvention, but everyone knew it was consequence-wearing makeup. It should have felt like triumph. Instead, it felt like inventory. What I had gained wasn't revenge. It was a house that didn't smell like compromise. By April, they started trying a new approach. Less confrontation, more nostalgia. A birthday card for Ava with no signature, just a $20 bill folded inside. A voicemail from Mom, cheerful, unshaken. Just thinking of my grandbabies. Miss you all so much. But she never used their names. She never asked how old they were now or what they liked. She wasn't reaching for them. She was reaching for proximity. To feel like the kind of person who still belonged in our story. I didn't block her. I didn't reply either. One Saturday afternoon, Lisa stopped by again with coffee and that careful expression of someone who'd been talking to both sides. She sat on the porch swing, eyes on the empty driveway. "They're softer now," she said finally. "Your mom cries a lot. Your dad barely leaves the house." "They always knew how to perform grief," I said. "Rhea," she said, looking at me, "you really won't let them back in, will you?" I thought of the letters, the photos, the fire, of the text that started all of it, of how easy it had been for them to erase me when I stopped being useful. "No," I said, "because forgiveness isn't a revolving door." Lisa nodded, understanding even if she didn't agree. "Then I guess you finally got what you wanted." "Not what I wanted," I said, "what I needed." That night, as the kids fell asleep, I walked through the house. The air smelled like detergent and cinnamon. Noah was in the living room fixing a loose drawer. The small hum of normalcy filled the space the way wealth never could. I thought about my father's words, "You're not one of us anymore." How final they'd sounded, how true they'd become. They'd meant it as a curse, but it had turned into a blessing. Summer came early that year. The kids drew chalk constellations on the driveway, their laughter climbing up to the windows. I sat on the porch and watched the sun slide across the lawn, painting everything gold. That was when the mail truck stopped. A padded envelope, no sender, postmarked from my parents' city. Inside, a single Polaroid, a photo of the four of us from years ago. Me, Jessica, Mom, Dad, smiling in front of the Carmel house. On the back, in my father's handwriting, "We remember you." I stared at it for a long time. The past looking at me, frozen and toothless, trying to remind me of something that no longer existed. I tore the photo in half, not in anger, in acknowledgement. "You can remember me," I thought, "but you can't have me." That evening, Noah came out to the porch and sat beside me. The kids were inside, drawing on the chalky floor. He didn't ask what the envelope had been. He just reached for my hand. "You look peaceful," he said quietly. "I am." "After everything?" "Because of everything." He smiled, tracing a small circle on the back of my hand. "Then they lost." "No," I said. "They just ran out of places to win." "I used to believe peace was a gift you earned. Now I know it's a house you build yourself, brick by brick, boundary by boundary. Sometimes people knock. Sometimes they leave muffins on the porch or photos in the mail. Sometimes they stand outside, waiting for the door to open on its own. But it doesn't. Not anymore. Because I learned the truth buried under all the noise. Family isn't who shares your name. It's who respects your no. And that's a kind of wealth they'll never understand.